Let's move on to England versus Argentina. This game took me by surprise, I suppose. I didn't watch it live. I saw the result before I watched it, and I was like, oh, wow. England have now lost 4 of their last 6. Argentina, we know, Jip, can get a boil over, but they're playing each other in their opening game of the World Cup next year. This game meant something.
It's almost like the blueprint is when Argentina step up defensively. It's exactly like what happened in Christchurch. England had all the ball, they had all the territory, they had all the opportunity, but through that line speed pressure and the aggressive nature of the breakdown forced errors. Believe it or not, as we always say, when Argentina win the discipline battle, they normally win test matches because they keep themselves in the game. And England, obviously provided Boffelli the opportunity to kick, similar to Christchurch. So some teams are like that. They almost feed off defence. They get an energy and a belief, the back of collisions and the simplicity of just protecting your mate's inside shoulder and being aggressive with a tent around the breakdown. And it just seems to work for them. When they go away from that or they lose that, is when they can sort of have those blowout scores like we saw in Hamilton. So the big test for Argentina is that consistency, but it's not a surprise, I don't think, as much as it used to be. They're normally in and around the semi-final at World Cups, and I think they're growing in belief. And maybe it's an element of less is more with their coach, obviously coaching league teams and then coming in, probably not always, cracking the whip, makes them, really perform in front up.
And I think one thing in that game as well, you talk around discipline, Jip, which has been a big problem for them in test matches. Look, their set piece was great. They were able to win at 100%, both at scrum and line-out time, which is always important, especially against the Northern Hemisphere. Michael Checker as well, the ability that he's running at the moment, give him a shout out at Michael Checker with him being able to do the league and the rugby. But I think the 2 tries that they did score, Jip, they were able to score and they weren't lost opportunities. And I know Alwyn Farrell's win is obviously the one that was knocked on, and Karedes goes all the way in the 50th minute. But I think those are crucial times in the game to be able to score points. And you obviously got Boffelli that scores how many points did he score? 20 odd points, 25 points for a try and penalties. So it does seem like it is their DNA, but I think that's the one thing that I saw as well. When they were able to score those 2 tries, they made them count, and then it put pressure on England. And when you're defending at 89, 90%, winning your set piece ball, having 30-odd kicks, which seems to be their DNA, and putting defensive pressure on England, that might be their DNA moving forward for next year in Rugby World Championship, which is World Cup rugby, Jip. That's the way you do win World Cup rugby, being able to play great defense, kicking, executing that well, and getting your set piece right, which they did on the weekend.
Yeah, and I think even in this game, if we take them back to when they beat the Wallabies at home, their kicking game is quite pinpoint and can put players under pressure, and they can score points off the back of that. So they're a real threat across the park now. They're not a one-dimensional team and they do have that unpredictability. But the biggest thing that they've cleaned up, as we said, is their discipline, but their ability to know when to offload. So often they used to be the team that offloaded the most, it would just be too many 50-50s, which would provide opportunity for the opposition. They just don't give you that anymore. They are really disciplined in their attack strategies and their ability to hold on to the ball.
The English were almost the opposite. They lacked discipline. They threw the ball away. Whenever they got points, they then threw away those opportunities too and gave Argentina some, Jip.
Yeah, I mean, it's the discipline that, similar to the All Blacks, they had a hell of a lot of territory, but they let them out of jail, and they just didn't take those opportunities. Like, they kept within a sniff, and that's probably credit to Owen Farrell and his ability to kick penalties himself. But it definitely wasn't the clinical performance that I was expecting out of them. But it also sets up the rest of the calendar, because we know that I think it'll bring the best out of them moving forward. They won't make the same mistakes twice.
Can Argentina beat Wales next weekend, Bryn?
Oh, I think they definitely can. I think if they show the kind of performance they had on the weekend, but it's very similar to when they played the All Blacks, got that win against the All Blacks, and then the following week, the consistency that we've harped on about with the Argentinian team. it's going to be probably a question that's going to be asked again, because the consistency is the biggest thing for them. But if they can get their DNA, which what we've kind of talked about, if that's how they're going to win Test matches, playing without the ball, kick well, defend very, very, very well, which is a good way to do it. It gives themselves an opportunity against the Welsh. But I think, again, for them, you'd like to think moving into the Rugby World Cup, they've had some really good scalps this year. They've beaten the All Blacks. They've obviously beaten the English. It'd just be great for them to probably get one or two more performances that'll set them really well and give them some real confidence going into that 2023 World Cup. Because we look at last year, we were talking around the consistency and where their game was at, and they've made a massive improvement in the last 12 months. So hopefully they can keep doing that with a result on the weekend.